Okay.
Want me to go around and ask people to take a seat anywhere?
I was just going to do that right
Oh,
now.
never mind. That'd be good.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
First to get a hug.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Glad to be here.
Hi, everybody. We're going to get started now. If you want to take a seat, be my guest. So I know it's going to be a little bit hot in the sun, so if you can hear in the back, you can stay under shade. Excellent. Those of hardier genomics can come in the sun. Yeah, it is brutal in the sun. You guys are going to know. Okay, just to make sure everybody can hear us all the way in the back, right? Excellent, good sound system. Okay, thank you for joining us today for Nancy Juechter's memorial. It's going to be pretty simple today. Okay, that's better. We're going to do this pretty simple today. Hold on. Really, all we're going to do is have a couple speeches and some lunch. Anybody who wants to talk can talk. We have 3 scheduled speakers today, and then we're just going to leave it open for anybody who would like to talk, or we could just have lunch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Jack up. Jack is going to start us off. He's written some words to remember Nancy. So it's nice, you have to keep it pretty close.
Okay. Well, I wrote a whole thing about Nancy, and I just thought we'd get it off to you. It goes on a bit. Nancy Alquist Juechter. 1987, when I first met Nancy Alquist, we were both in New High School, junior high school with her. She was the most beautiful blonde I'd ever seen. She was very popular with both boys and girls. I was nobody, so I didn't even dare introduce myself. My family moved from Belmont to Wood out of school. I didn't see any more Nancy or hear from her until one time in 2008 when I was on the internet, talking to friends, and line appeared on my computer saying Nancy Alquist would like to say hello. I was floored. I never realized she even knew I existed, let alone could confide me. I was happily married at the time to my 3rd wife. Nancy and I exchanged general thoughts back and forth, writing, but no interaction between us. My wife and I decided to take a trip over and take our next trip to the Panama Canal. Unfortunately, she died suddenly. I was left alone and I was devastated. After much sorrow, I decided to take the trip by myself. When I called the cruise line, they told me I'd have to leave from San Diego. That's where Nancy Alquist was from. I called her, asked if she would like to go with me. She said no, but after the 5th time I asked her, she said yes. We got along well for 14 days. We had the same room, but separate beds. After about a week, we decided we had love, and if we would move together. I can't read it writing. We moved back to the East Coast, where I had houses lived. But after some consideration, we decided it might be better if we moved out where her son was, just in case anything happened, somebody moved to California. We moved by German Shepherd also. After we were there, we decided to take a cruise. The dog was put in the kennel. After we cured Nancy, went to get the dog. When she got out of the car to get her, Nancy collapsed and died. Since then, I've had a very lonely, useless life. Nancy and I had both been married 3 times before we got married, and our marriage was the fourth of both of us. Our marriage was perfect. It was what all marriages should be. Without question, it was the best of my 4. I think Nancy felt the same way. We had arguments, to be sure, except that we would discuss whatever we thought, and sometimes come with a course of action, which is nice. I do miss her. God, I miss her. Thank you for listening to me.
Excellent, thank you, Jack.
Okay.
Great. Kelly, would you like to go? Excellent.
Part of this is to you, so we'll just leave you up here, okay?
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Keller Hayden, one of Nancy's daughters. The first time I noticed Nancy was her playing tennis at the Lincoln Town Courts. And of course, her incredible figure made her stand out. The next time was April of 1968. Dad took me to the Boston premiere of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Nancy, and I think it was Cheryl, was sitting in the seat right behind us. Might have been Heidi. Afraid I didn't know, but I was thrilled to have Dad to myself for this premiere, which was a rarity out of 6 kids. And then this woman behind us took a lot of his attention. Good thing the movie was very engrossing. I was jealous though, but looking back, it was an example of how adored our dad was with Nancy. Nancy also had an amazing effect on Dad. She smoothed out all the rough edges. She welcomed and made us all one big family. Shucks, they even took us all on their honeymoon. We were an even dozen, and we impressed the restaurants. I consider myself a very, very lucky family member. I got to enjoy Nancy in Lincoln, Connecticut, Maryland, California, and Rhode Island. Not everyone was so fortunate to have Nancy often to talk things out with. And I found I shared a lot with her. We love seafood, we love dogs, with a partiality to border collies. Anything sourdough, we loved history, the Orient, bright colors, purple. Oh, we love purple. And one time we even smoked the same cigarettes way back when. And there was a lot more, but especially we shared the importance of family. When we lived on Weston Road in Lincoln, I was the eldest living at home at this time, that Nancy and Dad met. Jessica and myself were often at Nancy's house, and I always considered that her house, after she and Dad got married. She even talked me into giving Anna piano lessons, which I enjoyed. I also got to enjoy a second camping trip out west, and being the eldest on that second camping trip, I knew it was important to try and get our families blended. She still was considered newlywed when we did this, but she pulled it off. When they lived in Connecticut, I was in college on Long Island, New York, and I'd often come home on weekends. They were the closest home in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and easy to get to. And Dad even gave me my first car, which made it easier. I also enjoyed that ensuite spa they built on the back of the house. When they lived in Maryland, it seemed too short a time. I still kick myself for not taking advantage of them being so close to me. I did get a chance to watch their dream home be built and follow Nancy on her choice of plantings. I was also there on the day they departed with their RV. They were planning to go to Mexico at one time, but they ended up in California. And I only had a couple of chances to see them in Oakland and San Diego. But Nancy was thrilled to be closer to her grandkids. Secretly, she is extremely glad not to have ended up in Mexico, as was Dad's original plan. She even entrusted me with Dad's ashes when we had his service in Virginia. Then, lo and behold, Nancy moved back to New England. How exciting. She was in my neck of the woods in my same time zone. And also a very drivable distance. It just thrilled me. Nancy had found love again with Jack. Jack also accepted this vast and varied family, as Nancy had done so many years before. She and I would kid him that he didn't know what he was in for all the time, but he eventually found out how close we are. Ruff and I were honored to stand in for her when they exchanged their vows for the first time in February 2011. The love they had for each other shone brightly every time I saw them. And I missed not being able to stop this past summer.
Pardon me.
Kurt, where'd he go? You moved. She so appreciated the help you gave her on the move back to California, and the help everyone gave. But she could talk nonstop about it. It was very overwhelming, and I had my doubts it would come to pass every time I spoke with her, but it did happen with the help of family. Now we come to today. Jack, you are always a part of this family. Don't you ever forget or lose touch. Good. Your struggles in the coming days are our struggles too. So anytime you have to, you lean on us. Nancy led by being a strong example of a competent woman. She was calming. She was a fantastic listener, accepting when needed, but opinionated too, with her sharp wit, love of animals, and especially loved family. We miss you now and forever.
That's really good. Yeah, it was a lot of help bringing these two to the West Coast,
Yeah.
and everybody was involved. That's really good. I have a few comments also I'd like to say. Hi Jack, how you doing?
Good. Fine. Lovely good.
All right. We gather here to honor the memory of Nancy, a great mother, a caring wife, and an admired guidance counselor, a treasured grandmother, a friend to many, and much more. Harry and Mary named their child Nancy Ellen when she started life in Oregon as an Alquist in 1926. Prohibition was still in effect. Goddard launched his first liquid fuel rocket, and Route 66 is now established. Her birth marks a time in history that was about opportunity, exploration, growth, change. Maybe this energy became the raw materials that created my mother's constant optimism, inquisitive mind, and all-around love of life. She enjoyed people, enjoyed travel, enjoyed learning, and her face was alight with the joy of her journey. You could look at any picture of her and see her grace, and see her energy, and see her spark. Nancy's family would soon move to the East Coast and would ignite her interest in traveling that would constantly bounce her between the two coasts like a yo-yo. She would travel to other countries and cherish those experiences too. You could tell she enjoyed exploring and traveling, because her eyes sparkled and reflected the memory of all the sights that she saw. Her spirit was fueled by adventure, and her memory held on to her experiences like treasured gems. She shared her experience through her well-worn stories that reflected the lens that she used to view the living world. I grew up with her, in her words, and learned that the world was just a buffet, laid out to be sampled and tried until your plate was filled. Eat some experiences, some memories, and some places, and then fill it again. Her journey rarely took a rest, frequently took a detour, and always lifted her spirits. Excuse me, will I borrow a story of hers to let you peer into Nancy as a child? She was a young schoolgirl walking home from the end of the school day. Walking with her friends, she found wild blueberries growing on her journey. Eating their fill, they continued on home. Life was carefree, and balancing on a wall was the adventure that made life taste sweeter. But with adventure there is risk, and she fell and hit her head, which resulted in a concussion. The doctor was called away from the opera to help her, and there was no time to change his white tux. When Mom told the story, it was important to emphasize the fact that she was asked if she ate anything. She would explain that she had hid the fact that she'd had blueberries. When the anesthesia was administered, she threw up and ruined the white tux. I may not have gotten the story completely correct, because it might have changed several times in the numerous tellings. No matter, I enjoyed the story because it showed me many things about my mother that I think she wanted to tell me. She was adventurous, she was happy, she had a fun childhood, she had friends when she was both very young, on until, she never really stopped making friends. She was fallible, she made mistakes but learned from them and taught what she learned to others. She liked food, she especially liked blueberries. But this would expand to lobsters, oysters, clamato, butter, hollandaise sauce, strong coffee, blue cheese, goat cheese, and pretty much anything that contained the flavor of life. She liked spices in all senses of the word. She became a cook that didn't have to measure. She did not learn that talent from her mother. She was inspired by Julia Child and would anoint Julia Child's cookbook with many of her culinary creations. Maybe she stopped measuring because she could no longer read the recipes that Julia had so carefully written for her. She met Julia one day in New York, and in my mind, I wonder if they realized how close they were to being twins. Each one staring at the likeness of the other, they must have wondered how fate had brought them together for this one frozen moment in time. Remember, one swing of brandy for the recipe and one for the cook. My mother also had great skill in repairing a recipe. Soon after she would arrive at your house, a meal would start. If an ingredient was missing, she would find a substitute, or she would change the result to fit the raw materials. It was hard to remember to have fried left-handed Asian capers or Australian goat bechamel sauce on hand for her latest creations. Nancy also followed special ceremonies according to the food that she was preparing. For example, when she prepared live lobster, the lobster had to be allowed to wander around on the kitchen floor while the water came to a boil. It would crawl around, get sniffed by the dog, maybe make it down the hall before the inevitable date with the pot. She loved food as she loved life, and her friends and family could feel her appreciation for the spice that makes living exciting. I love cooking probably because of her, but I will never have the same skill as she had. She also taught me to drive. We had a couple of weeks to pass the driver's exam before school started, and there was an additional complication. I had to learn on a manual shift. It was really not very pretty, but she helped me through it. Looking back, I wish I had thanked her more. Whenever I drive a car, see a lobster crawling, or cook a meal without measuring, I think of her. She's had many successes in life and many challenges. She reinvented herself by going back to graduate school so she could help more kids than just her own. The children cared for her at school. The children she cared for at school would run up and hug her whenever they saw her. If she went to the mall, she would be hugged by a whole gang. She would smile brightly when she saw an old friend because she knew a good conversation would soon be had. She built houses into homes and made sure that there was plenty of people, food, pets, plants, and love. Every home had to have an ample dining room table, even if the number of kids attending expanded and retreated over the many years. She helped with family business, even if it was not her primary interest to do with human resources. She left part of herself wherever she went and with whomever she met. The randomness of life was just the different flavors blending together, like an ice cream churn blending raw ingredients into unique, unforgettable mixture. I knew my mother my whole life, and I miss her. She was always there, but now no more. Our death does not define our life. It just draws a period at the end. She left this world with the same independence she absorbed in her childhood. She loved her dog so much she forgot herself. This was the same love for animals that she taught her children, and then her children taught her grandchildren. On August 31st, she drove her dog Delmy to the emergency vet because she cared about life and thought about others before herself. She moved back to San Diego to get well and used this newfound energy to do maybe more than she should. But that was her character, her fabric, and her spirit. Asking her to change was like asking the sun to change direction. Moving to a new home was natural for her. She had done it many times. I couldn't even attempt to name or count the places she lived. The number of homes was rivaled only by the sheer number of email addresses she burned through. She used them like barbecue potato chips at a frat house in Rushwood. She dedicated her life to helping others, especially if they were in need. She was a bright star, and anyone who was paying attention could see that. The hints were obvious and showed in her face, in her actions, and in her life. She had many friends, and I'm glad that many of you could make it here today to remember the impact Nancy had in your world. She taught me much, and I see her and her friends and family. I thank you for the small or large part you played in helping her and making her life long and full and enjoyable. Nancy's gift back to you is a simple love of life she's left inside you, which you may keep forever. So I don't know everything about my mom, and probably don't even know the half of what she was, what she did, or how she affected people around her. If you could, think about a time that you spent with Nancy, maybe a moment you shared with her that was special or unique. Maybe you know a story behind one of the pictures or something that not everyone knows. If you're inspired, share it with us, even if it's only a sentence. Thanks for attending. You honor her with your presence. Thank you. So that's all the speakers I know of. Excellent. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Asha Hawksworth, and I am Anna or Mindy's wife. Nancy never carried me in her womb, nor did she kiss my owies or wipe my tears. She did not take me to endless doctor appointments or tell me to clean my room. She did not endure great hardship on my behalf or watch me grow to adulthood. And yet, she was my mother. When I fell in love with her daughter, Anna, or Mindy, if you'd rather, I heard many stories about this miracle of a woman before I ever met her. I heard the story about the night that Anna's father came home to a locked door, with Mom crying on the stairs with a good friend. Bravely doing a very painful but necessary bit. I heard about how she went to the bank and persuaded them to forego mortgage payments for 2 years while she went to graduate school to determined to make a good life for her children. I heard about the woman who fell in love again and opened her heart to 6 other children she never carried in her womb, but whom she loved just as dearly. I heard about her sense of humor, her intelligence, and her to hell with what the world thinks attitude. In short, I was an admirer long before I met her. When Anna called Mom to tell her that she was getting married to a woman named Liz, Mom simply asked, "Are you happy?" All she needed was Anna's yes, and she was good. Mom came to our wedding, although my own parents did not. Mom was already predisposed to love me for loving her daughter, but my own parents' response to the wedding seemed to make her more determined than ever to make me one of her own. And so she did. I may have lost my birth mother, but I will always have Mom. In the time that I have known Mom, I have watched the typical mother-daughter spats with great amusement, gently reminding Anna on occasion that it doesn't really matter where they buried her father's ashes or how her party dress got ruined. It doesn't matter whose memory is better or how much may have been forgotten. Let's all just have a drink and play upwards. I didn't have a child's history with Mom. If I did, I'm sure I would have argued with her too. I came late to this party. I didn't know her in her youth. And I didn't know her before she was somewhat infirm. I only knew her after a long life. Difficult at times, but well-lived, with a happy coda of a new love with Jack. I knew her spirit, which shone just as brightly in these final years as ever it did in her youth, I am sure. And what a great spirit it was and is. I'm so proud that I had the gift of being able to call her Mom until we meet again.
You're stuck. Oh my goodness.
All right, it's a pretty warm day. So Christine is gonna come. If you want to take a second, if you're thirsty, grab something to drink.
I met Nancy in 1983, and in all those years I've known her, I've never known her to act her age. At 80 years old, she was having some hip issues, so she signed up for belly dancing classes, thinking that that would maybe loosen things up a little bit. She once told me that she never really felt her age until Cheryl applied for Medicare. She was a wonderful grandmother to my children. She was a wonderful mother-in-law to me. She was a constant in my life for 3 decades. I will miss her wit and her intellect and her lovely contralto laugh that usually devolved into a coughing spasm, and those sparkling blue eyes that danced behind her glasses when she was happy about something. And when I grow up, I hope I can do it with as much grace as she did. Thank you.
Good job.
I'd like to say a couple things.
Excellent.
I'm Joanne. I've been a friend of the Hayden family for 15 years, and I just wanted to share a little of who she was, maybe outside the family, glimpses you don't always see. She saw in me a restlessness, and I was talking about going back to school. Oh, okay. She saw in me a restlessness of being home with my kids, and she kept asking me, "What is it you want to do?" And I talked about going back to school to get a master's degree in nursing, and she encouraged me. Of course, her own example as a role model to me and a mentor, and I did. I went back to school and got that master's degree, and she was so proud of me, and we talked often about it. It wasn't always easy, and I would think about how when she went for her graduate degree, it wasn't an easy thing for her either, and that got me through a lot, especially being older in my class. This is like 3 years ago. I finished my degree. So I wanted to publicly thank her for being a mentor and a role model, and for showing us how to grow old gracefully too, and just grab life and just hold on to it with every day to the fullest. And I thank her for that. Thank you.
Excellent. Appreciate it. All right, let's take a break for a minute. You got something to say? Okay, do you wanna sit down? No, you want? Okay. Yeah, do you want me to chair for you?
Hi, for those of you that don't know, I'm Cheryl, and I'm Mom's first daughter. Not many people get to have 70 years with their mom. Can you all hear? Okay. I don't know how long I'm going to last up here. 70 years. I have thought of so many things to say and never written any of them down, because then another thought would come and another memory. I think that people who have already spoken did a wonderful job, and I thank you. I really felt for those lobsters. I couldn't stand them trying to crawl out of the pot. But at any rate, one of the things that Mom, that has been mentioned already, Mom instilled a love, was a rock star. What do you do? What is, and of course I know that she was just tremendously intellectually, she was smart. She was a smart woman. She had a big heart. She had a scope of knowledge that was, huge. So she would just relate to anyone. And I finally decided that what she did was she simply completely engaged with everyone that she talked to. And when I asked her what her secret was, she said, I listen. And because of that, I am trying to shut my mouth and listen more. There's an interesting circle of life here. My mother had me when she was 17, so she was in high school. So Jack knows my father, who is still alive, though he's had a massive stroke. And it's just so fascinating. Now, because you lose your mother, you lose a lot of memories, you lose a lot of history. But that's just an amazing cycle of life, that Jack knows my father and actually calls him by his nickname when he was a kid, Buddy. Mother, we don't know why she drove to the animal urgent care other than her concern for Delmy. She shouldn't have been driving, in our opinion. So she ended up with her last few minutes in an animal urgent care facility. And I, as an animal lover, can only aspire to that.
Sure. Yeah, you're such an animal lover. Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else, or should we take a break? We're going to be seeing lunch at about noon. So all I can feed you right now is cheese, and the bar will open up at the same time. Okay, thank you very much. I'll leave the microphone up here if somebody wants to say something. Okay, that's a great idea. Why don't we, those who are volunteering to have their pictures taken, come up and you can have your picture taken with Jack. $1.
I'd really like it if the kids in particular could come up, and spouses or former spouses or